1780 Digital Communication, a video about assignment number 2. This video is going to deal with sizing and making a smart object and bringing your smart objects over to your host document, which is a blank document, and we will also in the process do one simple masking through color range. I'm going to show you all of this will be the samples of the doggy with hats layout. That is one of the options for you to do in the assignment. Here we are on the Candy's Colorful JPEG, and the drill is the first thing you do once you open it in Photoshop is to check the image size. That keyboard shortcut is Control, Option, or Alt-I, and it brings up this window, and the first thing we want to do is unclick Resample and simply change the resolution to 300 with whatever it is and say OK. So what that was showing us was that it is at 300 pixels per inch, the width is 18.24 and the height is 12.16. And we actually want to size this specifically to the exact size of our assignment file. So we're going to say OK, and we're going to go to the crop window, the crop tool rather. You can go to the crop tool by going to C, and where we want to go once we're in the crop tool, which is this little icon, it's the third one down from the left if you're on double wide tools. And you want to immediately look up at the control bar, which is the contextual controls for all tools. And you want to scroll down, it usually defaults to ratio. You're going to scroll down to the second choice, which is WxHxRes. And notice that that already, it filled in with measurements because I had obviously been working on that exact same size before. If you're on a FITM computer, make really sure that you've got the right measurements in there. In fact, I think it's a really good idea to get used to zeroing or resetting it. You can do that by touching this kind of turned over, bent arrow. It's right next to where it says Content Aware. I'm going to click that so you can see it. And it zeroes all of those input measurements out. And I want you to understand what's going on here. So it says WxHx resolution. This is the W, meaning this is the width, the first field to the right. The next one would be the height. And the one after that is the resolution, because notice it says pixels per inch right next to it. So we want to be 17 inches wide, so we're going to put in 17. We want to be 11 inches high, we're going to put in 11. And we're going to put in 300 because we've already made the image 300 pixels per inch. And as you can see, I'm going to zoom out. It is put, the crop tool always has this kind of, it's almost like a gridded bounding box. And it shows you that's going to be the live area. That's going to be how the image looks. The dimmed out part is the part you will no longer see. We're cropping those pixels out. That looks fine to me, and you can either hit the return or enter key, or you can also hit this check mark. And that, I always double check, Control Alt I, it is now a 17 by 11 inch image. That's exactly what we want. We're going to go to our layer panel, we're going to rename it. I'm going to call it Candies. And I'm going to make it a smart object. You click on the name of the layer, right click, down to convert to smart object, release, and it turns into a smart object, and you can see that the icon looks a little different. It's got kind of a mini document icon within it. Let's also, let's pull that over to a host document, which we need to make. So when we say a host document, we simply mean a brand new blank layout that is where we bring all of our smart objects onto. So Control or Command N for a new document, and look at that, it's actually already got the size that we need in here. If it doesn't, you guys, let's say it's coming up and it says pixels, I'll just show you one thing. If you don't change it to inches and you go to 17 by 11 and you create it and you're like, oh, that's wrong, see how teeny that is? You want to go back in your history. And well, actually, we've actually created a new document. So that's just, you're going to throw that one away. So it's here, throw it away. It's no good. Make a new one. Command N, new document, the first thing you always want to do is make sure the inches are correct. And notice when it went to inches, all the measurements changed. So inches is the first thing you input. Make sure it's a scroll down menu. It's very simple. It's something we tend to forget. I'm going to now put in 17 by 11 inches high, 300 pixels per inch, RGB color, and say create. Now notice that the new document has these funny, it's got kind of a dotted line and some what we call handles on it. That's because I'm in the crop tool. So get out of the crop tool right away by just clicking into another tool. I usually go to the move tool. And now we want to pull our candies over. Now I've also got the landscape up as a tab as well and haven't played with that yet. But the easiest way to do this is to simply go up to the window here, go to Arrange, and go to Tile All vertically. And that gives you, as you can see, the white blank host document, the candies, which if we click on it and you look at your layers panel, and I'll pull the layers panel into the middle, you can see that that's your smart object, and we're not going to pay any attention to the cacti landscape yet. What we want to do is pull the candies over into this white document, this blank document. So click on the layer. If you don't know if you're clicked, see how it turns blue? That means it's selected. Then take your cursor with the move tool, which is V for move, and pull, just drag that image right over into that blank white space. You can position it later. I'm going to close candies down. If you wanted, you could save it, because it might be smart to save it for just in case you've goofed. I'm not going to, because I'm not going to bother. And here I have the two images, but that's getting confusing. So what you do is you go back to Window, to Arrange, Consolidate all to tabs, and that brings us back to that tab action where we can just click on the tab that we want to be working on. So Untitled number 1 is our host document. If you wanted to call it something, you could call it, Assignment 2 or 2 with your last name, and you could already have saved it to the proper name, so you know what's going on. Now I'm positioning the candies, which is exactly the right size. Notice the pink guidelines. They will help you position it, because you want to position it exactly to the corners, so there's no white space left over. Now our layer panel has the candies smart object on there. It's got our defaulted, what always happens is there's always a white background layer that has usually a lock on it. We don't even care about that, so we're going to just select it and hit the trash can and delete it. Yes, we're going to delete that background. We don't need a background that's not doing anything. I'm noticing that I've got to move mine a little bit to the right. It's kind of hard sometimes to position the thing perfectly. Now let's go to the cacti landscape tab. So we're going here. We need to prep this photograph as well. So we're going to quickly go to the image size. We know the drill. Resampling is not on, which is good. We're going to go to 300. And we're going to say OK, and then we're going to think about this. So I tend to just do this in 2 steps. You want to always change the resolution, and then if you're going to change the image size again through this, you want to bring it, close it, and then bring it back up again. So for this one, instead of it being exactly 1117, I'm going to click Resample and make the width. Let's see what happens when we make just the width. So this is the key. We want to proportionally change this down in size. So you need to have this bracket and chain length clicked on. See how that's on? That's on. That's not on. So the bracket is what keeps it constrained to proportionate, and you only change one dimension. So for this, I want a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to make this 18 and see if that's good enough. That gives me enough height to wiggle around both ways. So I'm going to say that's good, and I'm going to say OK. Now we've got this. Let's make it a smart object immediately. So you don't forget, you're going to just double click, not double click, you can right click on the name. It's easier to do it on the name than on the icon. Convert to smart object, name it. So I'm going to call this cactus. Name it with something that makes sense. That's the most important thing. So now we have the cactus smart object, and we want to get rid of that sky. So we're going to launch into this and see if we can do it as quickly as I hope. We're going to up to select, and we're going to color range. And color range brings up this window. And then if you remember, you want to take your cursor, which turns into an eyedropper, and I'm going to move this panel away from the sky. And I am going to click once, and then holding my shift key, I'm going to click all over the different color tones of the sky, being very careful to not touch the green cactus or the landscape ground part. Just the blue of the sky, and there's a lot of different colors of this sky. And there's a lot of different colors even within the clouds. And if you look on the color range window, as you click, it can show you what we want is we want that sky to turn completely white in this black and white preview window. And it's kind of telling you where you need to click, and if you look at it as you're doing this. So see up at the top here, that's probably this cloud. And then down here is kind of near this cactus. Now be very careful to not hit the cactus. Just go with that tip of the eyedropper. And then this cloud, horizontal cloud's not getting picked up perfectly. And then we've got some over here. And there's even more down here. Well, that's looking pretty good, but if it's still not perfect, you can play with this fuzziness. And it just play, it's a toggle switch so you can go in either direction. But what you want to do is you want to have what you want to take away, what you want to conceal, as completely white as you can get. And you want the part that you want to reveal be as solid black as you want. So we're going to say, okay. And all this does is make a selection for us. So this made a selection of the sky. But what we actually want to do is we want to inverse this because we want to conceal the sky and reveal the cactus. So we are going to go up here to select inverse, and it is also Control-Shift-I. And let's see, I've got to do it both ways. Okay. And notice that the marching ants is now around the perimeter of the cactus and the landscape and not the sky. That's what we want. We want to select what we want to mask. And now we're going to the bottom of the layers panel, to that mask button, and we're going to click it. And when you see the pixel grid, that means that we have masked out the sky. So there in our layers panel is the smart object with the mask. And we can still move this entire thing over to the host document. So if you want to go to Arrange, Tile All Vertically, which is an easy way of doing it, again, you want to make sure you're on the layer that you need to be on. So you're on the cactus layer. I'll pull out my layer panel. Put your cursor right in the middle of the image, even if there's nothing there, and pull it over to the host document. And you can always position it later, so don't worry if it's only partially there. It will totally show up. And if you look, I'm going to position it a little bit down. So see, I gave myself some wiggle room on the sides, just for fun. And as you can see, now on our host document, we have the smart object with the mask and the smart object of the candies. And that's how you begin to build out your background. One more thing I'll show you. So this is going to be our background layers. I'm going to make a group. To make a group, you click each of those layers. There's a couple ways of doing it. I always right-click and go to Group from Layers because it brings up a thing that makes me name it. And I'm going to call it Background Images. And then that's a group. And to open the group, in other words, to see what's inside it, you just click the little triangle, and that's it. All right, I'm going to stop there, and we'll do another video in a second.